Okay. Now it's Proteas. We love Proteas. It's our own very special national flower. Where's our Protea lesson? If you've got the lesson in front of you, you will see the page is divided into uh, a few categories of a few different Protea families. And although the Proteas are a family in themselves, inside of them is also different families. And they all look so different. But they are very beautiful and big flowers, and you'll always see them as you walk into the veld when it's flowering time. And they often flower in different times of the year. They don't all flower in the same season because they are huge providers of nectar. Those huge flowers have a lot of nectar. So they like a pick and pay here and checkers here. And if one doesn't flower this month, another one needs to flower because there needs to be food around. Okay. So we're going to look at our Protea lesson. And then there's a poem again at the end. Proteas are beautiful and very unique. That you can say again. More than 360 Protea species in southern Africa. Proteas produce a lot of nectar and they have colorful flowers to attract pollinators. Always lovely flower colors in the flowers, so we know they want to use insects or birds as pollinators, not so much the wind. Okay, so it says here these groups all form the big Protea family. Now, you can go on your own time and you can click on some of these pictures here, and it will actually take you to Google search where it will show you all the different kinds of pictures of the Proteas in that family. Here and there, I saw they made a mistake, but we'll forgive them. You might see the mistake also. So the first family is the true Proteas. Those are the ones that look like a Protea. The Proteas that we know is the Proteas on our as our national flower and our cricket team's emblem, and that's the king Protea, the huge one in this picture here, with the round leaves, often with a very red, little stripe along the edge of the leaf. Now these ones are huge, huge amount of nectar. It says here, Proteas are only found in Africa, and it is South Africa's national flower, the king Protea. Proteas are strong flowers, and that's perfect for the little sugar birds that help to pollinate them. Sometimes we also get the smaller birds coming in there, but the sugar birds are the huge birds with the long tails. They're quite big, they're about this big, and they come to sit on that flower. And for that flower not to collapse under the weight of that bird, it has to be very strong. And previously, we've mentioned that Proteas are very woody plants. Not just the stems, but the leaves and the flowers themselves. When they dry out, they don't just go, here's my leaf again, they just don't just wither away. Next year you'll get there and there's a brown leaf, and when you crunch it, it feels like a type of wood, a very thin kind of wood. But that gives the flowers and the leaves a very strong structure. It's almost like a skeleton inside, a invisible skeleton. Because the leaf will still look green and the Protea will still look like a flower, but inside, when it dries out, is the brown, hard, woody skeleton. Now the birds often have to hop on top of the flower to kind of start looking for nectar in there, and then as they move around they get pollen on them, and that's the way that they pollinate, because they will fly to the next flower and leave some pollen there. But while they're there on the flowers, they also eat, because most of the birds that eat nectar will also here and there catch a little hoho, a little bug. They love eating bugs, so they clean it, the whole plant, from any pests that's around. So while they're eating nectar with their long tongues, they will also clean it from any pests. Now, those are the common proteas, the ones that look like a protea that we know. Then we get the next family, and they called it the Leucospermum. Now, they are the pincushion families. They are also a huge family, but here on the Southern Peninsula, we actually only get the yellow one out in nature. You get these orange ones like in this picture, but this picture was taken from Kirstenbosch Gardens. And the nurseries will often have different colors of them because they are hybrids. They will kind of mix the genes, and conservationists don't always like it when people start mixing genes. And that is, they do that to get different colors. But we get a few colors. You can go look in a decent plant book, and then you can see the natural colors that we get. The pincushion flower is actually a little bouquet of flowers. So every pin that sits in this pincushion is a flower on its own. So the flowers sit together in a bouquet. So if I pull one of these out, I pull the whole flower out. That means this part has all the parts that a flower needs. It's got a stigma and a stamen, it's making nectar, but they've all been put together on a little bouquet, on a flower head. Okay. The plant leaves are a little swollen, have those little swollen red tips, and those are the waxy glands. And of course, we know that ants just love them. You often find little insects on those waxy glands. Now, those waxy glands are right there on those tips. So those little red balls there. And I always show you that when we're out in the veld. I can't wait to show you again. And that is something that they kind of use to lure the insects up there. They want to lure insects there to help with pollination. But they like getting the ants up there because the ants are very protective over their flower or their source of yummy stuff that they get from those waxy glands. So they will protect it. So if any other bugs come around, they will just throw that bug off the plant. They will toss it off. They're like little security guards that just clean the area. No, it's ours. And that is what the plant wants. The plant wants this protection. The ants are grooming this plant from all its pests, and in return, it gives it that little red waxy glands with that yummy substance in there. And we've tried before to get something out of those glands. I've chewed them, I've sucked them, I've licked them. I don't get anything out of them. Only ants know how to do it. Okay, so that's our pincushion flower family. Then we get the leucodendron. Can you see those two names are very similar? Leuca. Spermum, dendron. Now, the leucodendrons are the bushes with the cones. Even those silver trees that we see and that Cape Town is so famous for, they are also part of this family. With leucodendrons, you will always find separate male and female plants. What does that mean? It means, like if we think of the pincushion, it had the head with the flowers. Each flower had complete male and female parts in one flower. But with the leucodendron, it said we separate. So we get the separate male plants and the separate female plants. Now, interesting. The female plants will carry the cone, and the male plants will have a tiny little flower that will give pollen off. The male plants will have a little pom-pom flower, and the female carries the cone, which receives the pollen from the male pom-pom flower. These pom-poms and cones grow at the ends of the branches. Can you see there? You will always find them sitting right there. Now these guys are not very colorful. Sometimes they can get really yellow and sometimes almost a pinkish color. But they use the wind for pollination. That is why there's so many of them and why they sit on the ends of the branches. So if the wind goes crazy, it shakes the pollen out and the female cones can pick up the pollen. Amazing. And you get a lot of different kinds of liquidendrons all around. You get small ones, you get bigger ones, you get ones with huge cones. They absolutely beautiful. And when it's time to flower, the tips of these plants, the leaves over there change color, and then you can know this plant is in flower. Amazing. So clever. The next few families we're looking at is, the first one is the Mammatus family, also part of the Proteas. It's actually a family that is very protected. The Mammatus, I think, is most protected next to the Diastelas. I think we get about 3 different Mammatus species here on the Cape Peninsula, and they're all protected. And some of them, we've now seen more of them come up after the fires from a few years ago. And they're flowering like crazy, beautiful. And they've also got their flowers at the end of the branch like this. Can you see how silvery the leaves are? Because they're covered with hair. Beautiful silvery leaves. And then the top part becomes the flower. And there's a lot of red or a very dark pinkish color to their flowers. We don't often see the red in Proteas, but in the Protea family, but these ones have got the red, and then in contrast with that, you've got the yellow that's in between. Lovely plants. Some at Cape Point, some at Silvermine. Keep your eyes open. Some of them like the wetter areas, so where there's a seep line or close to water in a marshy area, you might see some of them. And who can forget the Cerurias? I always say Ceruria because it's one of my favorite words to say. Ceruria. It says here they are small needle-like leaves. They don't have large leaves. If you look closely, their little leaves look like fingers. Sometimes it's more than 3 but they look like little fingers. Very small leaves. For the same reason as the ericas, to not lose a lot of moisture through their leaves. But they are also full of flowers. Look where the flowers are sitting at the ends of those stems. And those flowers, when they die, they look like a little spider. Sometimes you get a fright when you look in there because it seems like it's a spider. And some people actually call them spider heads. And it's just it's very messy flowers, very messy in there. It's not as perfect as the Protea where you have the lines, the true king Protea. The flowers are fluffy pom-pom-like and are surrounded by the needle-like leaves. Blushing Brides is a very famous Ceruria. Brides love using it. It's a beautiful flower. And they're also part of this family. At Cape Point, we get the one that's not as flashy as the Blushing Brides. We get this yellow one, but they're all over the place. But they're very common in Cape Point, but not common all over the world. They're endemic to this area and also highly protected. And then we get to the smallest Protea in the world, the Diastella. Look at this tiny one. It looks big there, but I tell you, it's as big as my pinky nail. They're tiny. You really have to keep your eyes open if you want to see it. But there's lots of them at Cape Point, lots. But that's the only place they grow. You won't find them so abundantly everywhere else, maybe on the peninsula like Silvermine. No, they're very rare. I know there's about also 2 or 3 species in this family, And you might find some over at Pringleby. I've seen recently people posted pictures also of some people call them silky puffs, but they're tiny little pom-pom flowers. And they say if you really go in and look at the flower under a microscope, they look more like your pincushions than any of the other Proteas. So the structure of the diastella flower is more like a pincushion. Amazing. Very small. They don't really become large bushes. It's more like a creeper. Very low plant that will grow, and you will often miss it. It looks like a little weed going past. Okay, let's quickly look at this beautiful poem by Antjie Krog. The King Protea elf. There's a little elf. He looks very angry. Let's see what he says. The Protea elf in the Protea crown lazes at ease in the soft pink down. The Protea crown, we often refer to this big old King Protea as a crown. We often see women wearing it as a crown. Lazes in the soft pink down. That is the softness of this inside of these flowers. They are so delicate and so soft and almost velvety. And this is how she describes it, a soft pink down. And this little elf thinks this is his posy, this is his bed. But he is the one who frightens away the greedy white eyes. He keeps them at bay. Why is he chasing the beautiful Cape White eyes away? They're there for the pollen, and they will also take care of some bugs around. But he is so protective over his flower. I think he's a little bit jealous. He doesn't want anybody else there. But in the meantime, these little birds can help. They can help, eh? Who slices through the sunbird's tongue? So sad a bird should die so young. Is he, this little one killing all the sunbirds? He's so jealous that he chases them away. But it says here, who slices through the sunbird's tongue. Have you ever seen a sunbird's tongue? It is forked at the end. So it's this little elf, the one that's slicing their tongues. Naughty, naughty. Who nuzzles the king with his elfin lips. Oh, he's completely in love with his King Protea. And stroke his leaves with their soft pink tips. Completely. Who bays like a hound to sound the alarm when the bushfire crackles, breaking the calm. Oh, if the fire starts, it's crackling, and he will make alarm to protect his precious Proteas. He is a protector, King Protea's knight, a passionate warrior eager to fight. Oh, he just wants the Protea for himself. He doesn't want to share. But look what the Protea says. Without him, says the king, I'm not myself. I depend on my fairy Protea elf. So it looks like the King Protea actually loves his little fairy being so in love with him and chasing everybody away. But in actual fact, we know that the Protea needs the birds to come and help with pollination and keep the bugs away and eat the bugs. So they are actually the Protea's friend. But this little elf is way too protective and too jealous to actually see that. Oh, yes, the beautiful chameleon. Look at his little tail here in the corner. These illustrations are so beautiful because they're so true to nature. Look at the red rim around the beautiful Protea leaves. Everything is so beautiful and so true to nature. Thank you, Antjie Krog, for this beautiful poem again. So guys, there was your English lesson for the day. It was your Protea. I couldn't fit in any Afrikaans. I'm very disappointed in myself. Next time I'll get some Afrikaans in there. Okay, I hope you have a wonderful day. and I will be sending a Restio lesson soon and also a geophyte lesson. So whenever you're ready for that. Cheerio.